Hello everyone, Ace here, and today I've got yet another news article to cover for you all today. Now, before we continue, I must say that I do my absolute best to make sure that these news articles relate to either gaming or history, as that's what my channel is built upon, so I don't want to overstep those particular bounds with regards to this channel. But after reading this article, I can safely say that it does indeed relate to gaming, as this is a journalist article trying to take a jab at gamers in general, using modern politics to do so, however. And here's the article in question from Splinter News, written by a journalist named Jack Crosby. And it says, Trump says actually it's about ethics and political journalism. So let's dive in. The president woke up today mad at the press in a tweet that sounded awfully reminiscent of Gamergate. And the tweet in question that he is providing as Exhibit A simply reads, "The fake news media in our country is the real opposition party. It is the true enemy of the people. We must bring honesty back to journalism and reporting." So let's see what this journalist has to say about that tweet. Fantastic. Honesty back to journalism and reporting. Sounds a hell of a lot like we're about ethics in journalism. The oft-repeated argument that Gamergate was not, in fact, about violent misogyny, and instead just about trying to get journalists to do their jobs honestly. Okay, so here are my thoughts with regards to what this author is trying to claim. I actually find it quite amusing that we still have journalists out there who will think that people will actually fall for the argument that there are no ethical concerns at all when it comes to the journalist community at large, or indeed in the game journalist community specifically. In fact, this was a problem that had been boiling over for quite some time, even prior to Gamergate. For a start, one of the most notorious examples of corruption within game journalism was the 2007 GameSpot firing of Jeff Gerstmann for his review of Kane and Lynch. The reason for this firing was because Jeff Gerstmann gave the game a middle-of-the-road review, and as a result, the publisher of the game threatened to pull the ad revenues from the GameSpot website. This is an incident that has been burned in the minds of gamers for a very, very long time. Added to that were other more recent examples, such as the notorious Dorito Pope scandal of 2012. In which case, famed video game journalist Jeff Keighley was surrounded by product placement with a completely dead look in his eyes while still answering questions to players about the upcoming Halo 4 and the tie-in between Mountain Dew and Doritos to it. Needless to say, this was an incident that was mocked by the community at large, and actually saw something of a sequel in 2013 with the VGX Awards. These awards were run by Jeff Keighley in an attempt to promote various video games at the end of the year. Unfortunately for Mr. Keighley, it was decided that Joe McHale would be a special guest host, and Mr. McHale took the opportunity to vent the frustrations that many gamers in fact had towards games journalists up to this point, and to openly mock what modern game journalism had become.
We've got world premiere videos every 15 minutes, breaking news, exclusive demos, and many other phrases that basically mean video game commercials. For about a minute after that. How about you? You have to be, you know everything, so
yes.
When you say which game you are most excited about,
right,
that causes ripples through the video game universe.
Well, I try, yes, I have to be very,
you have to be very political. I know you're going to say, you know, I like them all for different reasons.
Exactly. No, I will say we've got some amazing stuff still coming up in the show.
Name one game that you're really excited about.
Well, I'm really excited. We have Titanfall later.
So that's the most excited. All the other games don't matter to you. Just say it. Just say, Jeff, don't care about any other games
that's a big
except
game.
for Titanfall.
Destiny looks fantastic.
Said by Jeff.
I'm just trying to be...
Jeff Keighley states he only cares about one game this year. Go ahead.
No, I try and be honest. A lot of games look great tonight, and that's what's great about the shows. We get all the industry together.
I feel like a lot of them
trying to dig myself out of this hole.
And I like one. All right.
Well, Joel, at the end of the night, you're going to tell us which one you think looks the best. And I think Titanfall you're going to be impressed by, and The Witcher 3. The graphics in this game.
See, I think it's The Witcher 3 for him because he's said it a couple times to me. It's just like, have you seen The Witcher 3?
Exactly.
So, all right.
And it's still coming, Joel.
So The Witcher 3 just unseated Titanfall. Now, you do not like Titanfall. Just say it.
Until the Titanfall world premieres happen. I'm very flexible. Because
if you tell me which game you love the most, I will buy you 4 more layers.
I need it. Winter is coming, as we saw in Game of Thrones. I need another 4 layers.
It's LA outside, right? It's 70 degrees. Okay, our next...
Back to the show. Well, cool.
How about you? How about you, mister?
No, I mean, I think all the same stuff you said.
Name one game that you're going to play, other than all of them, and you like them all.
No, they all. Have
you ever not liked a game? Have you ever gone on record of saying, I don't like this game?
Yes, there have been some games that have not been very good.
Really?
Yes. A lot of them disappoint, and they're not nominated here tonight.
That's why, yes, this is only the finest.
Only the finest, the best of the best. Well, Joel, it's been awesome to have you kind of hang out with us. Thank you for...
We go way back, 3 hours ago.
Yes,
so.
Well.
The main thrust of my argument here is, of course, that there was already a deep-seated and open contentment that gamers had toward game journalism at this point. So it's easy to see when game journalism had the third major controversy within a year that gamers have pretty much had enough of it at this point. And there is therefore a considerable amount of evidence to suggest that Gamergate was indeed about ethics in game journalism. Anyways, back to the article. This is the easiest scam there is. You create an environment where people mistrust the press, but you claim that you're not against journalism as an institution. You love the First Amendment. You're just against bad journalism. What is bad journalism? It's the journalism that people like Trump don't like, of course. The shit that makes you mad. Okay, so there's two things I actually have to say regarding this particular paragraph. I'm actually going to shorten and adjust this paragraph so it actually fits with reality. Are you ready? The press creates an environment where people mistrust the press. As I've already mentioned previously, the problems that led up to Gamergate had been boiling for years now within the gaming community. And the constant attacks on gamers as an identity that immediately followed by game journalists claiming that gamers as an identity are dead is clearly what is actually responsible for this great deal of mistrust within the community. Of course, there are exceptions, and while bad journalism is very much a very real problem, not all journalists are of course bad. For example, despite the fact that Jeff Gerstmann could be a bit provocative in his reviews at times, he was still very much well liked within the game community. Another example, of course, would be Ben Yahtzee Krishal of The Escapist, who is well known for his hard-hitting reviews, and yet is still very much well-liked. He's pretty much the only person keeping that entire website alive at this point. So clearly the problem is not that journalists can be a bit provocative, it's the fact that they can be outright hostile to gamers themselves by writing hit pieces suggesting that gamers are somehow evil or suggesting that the identity of gamer itself is no longer valid. That, and of course the blatant corruption that has been rampant within that industry for some time as well. Now he does bring up another tweet from Donald Trump, but I'm not going to read it. Instead I'm just going to skip ahead to the actual paragraph. Maybe you make up some lies about someone sleeping with a reviewer, or incite your thousands or millions of followers to lob abuse at writers you don't like. It's all Gamergate, and it will never die. Okay, so it does appear that I am going to have to discuss the Zoe Quinn situation briefly, if only because this particular journalist thought it would be a good idea to bring it up. So the accusations made by her ex-boyfriend from 2014 say that she effectively slept with several different men in order to get positive reviews and coverage of her game known as Depression Quest. That in a nutshell is the whole controversy that he's trying to complain about. There's two problems with trying to suggest that it's actually about misogyny. The first is that nobody actually cares what Zoe Quinn does in her own personal life. Okay, obviously cheating is wrong, but that has nothing to do with gaming, and I therefore do not care about it, nor does a lot of people. What I do care about is that favors were exchanged to try to get an unfair advantage within the game industry. The thing is, though, for this to be the case, Zoe Quinn would have to find game journalists that are actually agreeable to it. So in this case, the problem is not that Zoe Quinn was willing to go through with it, but that game journalists were willing to go through with it. And I actually find it quite amusing and hypocritical when it's suggested that the Gamergate community somehow led a sustained harassment campaign against game journalists, despite the fact that the FBI has completely cleared them of such a thing, when ironically we had a bunch of game journalists instead publish hit pieces suggesting that the gamer identity was dead on August 28th, 2014. But I will, however, admit that this author is right about one thing, and that is the fact that the Gamergate movement isn't going to die out until this whole corruption problem is resolved. There's a direct line between Gamergate and the rise of the alt-right. The online militias of 2014 were already pissed off and reactive when Trump came around and welcomed their shitposts with open arms, giving them license to say all the non-PC things they were convinced were the truth, and then push even further under the guise of biting humor. We're 2 years into this presidency, but it feels like 5 at this point, because it might as well have started in 2014. Okay, so I do have to counter a few statements that this guy has said in the last paragraph. For a start, the Gamergate movement was never an alt-right movement in the first place. In fact, according to surveys that I've seen, the evidence quite clearly suggests that the Gamergate movement was, if anything, a libertarian left movement. Secondly, and I realize I am getting a little bit out of gaming and more into politics itself here, but the alt-right movement itself is extremely tiny. You're looking at maybe, 50 to 100,000 people at the very most, at least from what I've heard. So when discussing the supposed rise in that particular political philosophy, it's important to understand that you're still discussing a very, very tiny number of people overall. They are, in terms of their actual political power, rather insignificant. So yeah, that was the entire article. Who knew that Trump was actually secretly behind the whole Gamergate movement, right? It certainly was a surprise to me. But of course, journalists, and in particular game journalists, are always filled with knowledge and wisdom that the average person is just simply severely lacking in, right? In any case, I hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.